what it takes to be a corporate lawyer, what it takes to be a tech lawyer, how did I even get here in the first place, and some of the differences between us as in-house lawyers and tech lawyers and lawyers in a law firm. Well, good morning. So I got this question on my Instagram the other day when I posted a video about being a lawyer in tech, and someone pretty much asked me, like, what is it that you actually do? Because I think there's a misconception that all lawyers go to court, and that is not true. I don't leave the confines of this office pretty much all day, but I'm gonna break down a little bit about what I do all day and what it actually is that a corporate lawyer slash tech lawyer does as a living. So come spend the day with me. When I start my day, when I get into the office, I try to get all my stuff together for the day, meaning like I set up my desk so that everything that I need is on my workstation. My lifeline is going to be my email, my phone, and my chat. I try to stay on top of my email as much as possible because, again, that is my main source of communication through the company. So essentially what I do is I am a transactional lawyer. So I deal with all the transactions for the global organization that deals with anything technology related. Now, obviously, as an in-house lawyer, sometimes you take on things that are outside of your wheelhouse in terms of things that are not necessarily your area of expertise, but by virtue of your training, you know how to review for it. If there's anything that's super complex, obviously you would outsource it to external counsel. External counsel is a law firm or a lawyer that does not work for the company, works for a firm, but they have a very specific area of practice that they practice, and they're able to co-counsel and sort of help in-house attorneys like myself with a particular matter that I may not have any experience in. So I'm just trying to get through my emails. I was out of the office yesterday, so I have quite a few. I sort of stayed on top of it, but not really. When I'm on PTO, I'm on PTO, child. So I have 2 meetings today, so not so bad at all. It's actually a great day. I do have a meeting with our CFO at 11 o'clock today to go over a few other contracts that need his final approval. So that's my first order of business today. Let me go ahead and get that done, and then I'll check back in with you guys, and then we can have a detailed conversation about what it takes to be a corporate lawyer, what it takes to be a tech lawyer, how did I even get here in the first place, and some of the differences between us as in-house lawyers and tech lawyers and lawyers in a law firm. So just sit tight. I'm gonna check back in with you guys. Let me get the shmonyan. All right, so I just finished my meeting. I got one thing signed, and then one other thing is like pending. They have to have another discussion offline about that particular matter. So let's talk a little bit about the differences in attorneys. So if you're not a practicing attorney, if you're in law school, or if you're thinking about becoming a lawyer, or you want to come in-house, there are some very stark differences between what attorneys at firms do in terms of like litigation, they do in terms of like transactional work, and what we do as in-house lawyers. So first thing, you have your litigators that typically work for either their own practice, or they have a firm that they work for, and they deal with all litigation, as the title kind of describes, right? So they go to court, right? And a lot of it, well, arguably you're trying to stay out of court as much as possible, but they do motion practice, they file complaints, they respond to complaints, they work on behalf of clients, right? And they can have multiple clients. They can have hundreds of clients, thousands of clients, several clients, whatever. But they work on behalf of those people or organizations and represent them in court, in litigation, and handling disputes, even if it really doesn't go to court. If it's like a personal injury matter, they're working on a contingency fee basis, and they take a percentage of whatever is recovered, or they're working on a billable hour. And depending on the seniority of the lawyer, that'll sort of dictate what sort of fee they're charging on an hourly basis, right? And then you have lawyers that work on very specialty items, very special niche areas of the law that work in firms, and they represent clients in that particular area of law. And again, they're working on a billable sort of schedule. Now, these lawyers can make a hell a lot of money, especially if they're like equity partners or managing partners, or they're overseeing the whole practice division. They can make a ton of money. They do really well. It's a lot of work, right? I've never been in a firm. My mom works for a really big firm in Fort Lauderdale, and I've been around it basically my entire life. I was hooded by one of the best tax attorneys in the country, actually helped her write the tax code, so I'm well aware of what it takes to get to that level. And I don't know. Oh no, it's not for me. And then you have other lawyers that are, coming up in the ranks, and they're working and they have billable hours and they have to meet a certain level of billables. Now, they all work in firms for the most part. And then you have government lawyers that work, and public interest lawyers, right, that work in the public sector for the government. You have your state attorneys, your assistant state attorneys, your public defenders, your people that work for the county, for the city, things like that. And they're government lawyers. They're not doing billables. They're not with the firm. They work specifically for the government. Now, for some government lawyers, particularly those that are in the state attorney's office or the public defender's office, they are going to court, and they're going to court pretty much every single day. That's where I started. I started as an assistant state attorney. I hated every minute of it. And that's where I quickly learned that litigating, the courtroom, criminal work is not for me. There's like a private practice. If the attorneys that work in private firms that do like criminal defense work, they do really well. A lot of them do really well for themselves in their practice. But again, it's litigation. It's not something that I would ever want to do. Now, on the other side of it is what I do, and putting my glasses on for this because this is what I know the most about. So I'm in-house, and an in-house lawyer has one client, and that is the company or the corporation, whatever the structure is. And we handle, sometimes we're generalists that can handle pretty much anything depending on how the legal department is structured, or we can handle very niche matters. Like in my case, I do global technology transactions, and if I need to bring on somebody like an external counsel or something to help me with something very specific, I have the ability to do that. But generally speaking, all of those matters come across my desk in my email. They're assigned to me, and that's what I work on. The majority of this stuff is contracts. So you would think that it's really just easy to just read a contract, and in theory it is, right? But there's certain language, there's certain risks that are innate to contracts, and especially when you're dealing with multi-million-dollar transactions, there's a lot to consider, right? You're going to have to mitigate risk where you can, and where you cannot, have to let your client, i.e. the business, know about where the risk is. And a lot of times it takes lots and lots of negotiations. Sometimes negotiations could go on for months, and even though you're not fighting, you do have to work with the other side's lawyers or the other side's reps and sort of work through any sticking points that you may have in a deal or a transaction. And it can get a little bit hairy sometimes depending on who you're working with and exactly how sensitive the matter is. So that's what I pretty much do in a nutshell. And then on top of that, it's like all of the administrative stuff. Now, how do you get to become an in-house counsel or in-house lawyer? There's two tracks that you could do. You can go the generalist route where you're doing a little bit of everything. So the most important thing for you to learn is transactions. Understand what your jurisdiction is doing in terms of business to business or business to customer dealings is, right? A generalist position usually gets you in the door. That's where I started. I started pretty much doing whatever contracts were coming through and then utilizing external counsel. But this was 13 years ago. But if I were hiring for like a new lawyer, I would be looking for someone that could come in and be a generalist that can pick up the things that I don't necessarily want to work on, the smaller matters, the NDAs, the run-of-the-mill template kind of documents, and leave the bespoke and negotiating to me. I would say that's your best bet into in-house if you have absolutely no experience. Oh, my phone's ringing. Hold on. Yeah, sorry about that. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So if you don't have any in-house experience at all, leverage the experience that you already have. So if you were like interning, or you did a summer associateship, or you're already working in a firm that in like a certain practice area, sort of try to leverage that and see if you can find a position that will pull those skill sets in-house, and then you're in, right? And then you can go from there. Now, if you want to go in-house for a specific area, like for example, like SaaS, PaaS, information as a service, sort of data privacy or anything like that, you're going to need a little bit more experience, because they're looking for someone. If I were looking for someone, I'd be looking for someone that could jump in and start producing work, right away within 30 to 60 days once they get a feel for what the business does. Those are very specific areas of law, right? And there's certain criteria that you're going to probably have to meet, and it's very competitive right now. So the more that you can arm yourself with experience and knowledge in your current role and try to transition that into an in-house role, try to get as much experience as you can under your belt wherever it is that you're working. Take on a project, take on new projects. Maybe you can start taking over the responsibility for smaller things, teach yourself, and definitely leverage outside counsel if you have access to outside counsel, and let them sort of like teach you what they're doing. Don't ask them outright, obviously, but ask them the rationale when they deliver work product to you, so you can kind of get a sense of what it is that you're doing, and take CLEs. Also try to get certification. So there's like data privacy certifications, there's InfoSec certifications, there's all kinds of certs that you can get on top of your law degree and your license that will help you specialize. Now, in terms of like the tech side of things, I have an IP background. So very early on in my career, I was dealing with data privacy before GDPR and before CCPA and all of these big regimes came out. I was dealing with data privacy, but I was also within a SaaS company. A lot of you guys know that I used to work for a really big credit bureau. And within that, we dealt with a lot of data, but we had a SaaS offering. So I understood the licensing considerations around the licensing of data, the licensing of SaaS products and PaaS products, and reselling the service. I learned a lot about that years ago. When you're looking at like a software or you're looking at a platform, for example, that's someone's IP, and they're giving you a limited license to use that particular piece of technology, and within that comes IP considerations and licensing considerations, plus all of the other stuff in the contracts. I hope this is not getting too convoluted. Now, maybe tech is not your thing. Maybe you just want to stick with intellectual property. For example, on our team, we have 2 intellectual property attorneys that deal strictly with intellectual property. If you have experience in intellectual property, anywhere, even if you've worked for the USPTO or you've worked in some capacity with intellectual property, leverage that experience to get yourself an in-house role where you're working with IP. And even if you're working on other things, at least you would be honing your skills a little bit more in intellectual property or whatever it is that you want to do, so that in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you can be a little bit more of a specialist. Now, there's so many areas of law that you can specialize in in-house. They do have litigation departments in-house. If you are a litigator, sometimes they will take you in-house because you know how to like be on offense with litigation. You probably won't go to court, but I can't guarantee that. But if that's what you want to do and you just want to have the one client working for that corporation and litigating on their behalf or dealing with motion practice on their behalf, you could do that too. Another consideration is like if you just want to do like compliance work or corporate secretarial work, or even if you want to do things like M&A, mergers and acquisitions. So I say all that to say there's lots of room if you want to come in-house. The only thing that I will say is an in-house role can be very lucrative once you're in it. Once you're in it and you've practiced and you have specialized and you become pretty much indispensable to your company, it can be very lucrative no matter where you go. The better you are at your job, obviously, the better you're compensated. But I cannot sit here and say that you will be more compensated here than you would at a large firm where you're like a big partner or a big like equity partner or a managing partner or whatever the structure is. Those big head honcho guys, they make a ton of money. The bonuses are amazing. The drawback is you're working your butt off. There's not a lot of work-life balance, right? I know a few of these people. In terms of like what I do, I have a very, very, very good work-life balance. Generally speaking, you'll probably have a better work-life balance working in-house than you would at a firm. However, in-house roles are cost centers for businesses. So it's not like you're walking on water like when you're at a firm. When you're at a firm and you're generating revenue for the company or the firm itself, the law firm, you're very revered. Everyone is there working for you, supporting you. as opposed to working in-house when you're supporting the business, right? So people aren't working for us, we're working for everyone else. So it can be a little bit of a thankless job at times because we get paid a considerable amount to protect the business, but not everyone always sees the value in that. I don't know why. You are pretty much just a regular employee. There's no special perks, there's no special treatment. Okay, yeah, you do work for the company, but there isn't like, you know, there's no one getting your coffee, there's no one managing your calendar, there's none of all the perks that you would expect from a regular law firm. You probably won't get in-house. It's a regular job, right? But I will say that the comp packages are wonderful. They're competitive. But anyway, if you're looking to transition in-house, again, start to kind of figure out where you want to go with it and start to see what's out there on LinkedIn and some of the job sites, and see what's out there and what the skill sets they're looking for, and start getting yourself marketable in that area, whatever area it is that you want. And you may not even need to do that. Apply and see what happens. You just never know. Anyway, it's almost the end of my lunchtime. I do not typically eat lunch. I don't typically leave my office for lunch. Once I'm in here, I'm in here. I do have another meeting at 2, but that's it. So I'm gonna continue on. I have a bunch of matters that I need to touch today, and I need to follow up on a couple of things, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Yeah, so I finished the legal meeting about an hour ago, so I'm just reading through, and it's almost 3:30, and by this time of the day, like, my brain is just like, my eyes are tired. I'm just tired in general, but my eyes are tired. But I am literally exhausted. I've already finished my coffee. I don't really have an appetite. I'm just working, so I'm gonna lock in and get this done, and then we'll probably wrap up for the day. Okay, y'all, it is the end of my day. I know I haven't done a lot of moving and shaking today. I don't typically do a lot of moving and shaking. I usually sit here for the entire day. And for those of you who have jobs where you're sitting at a desk doing mental load work all day, you understand like how tired you get behind your eyes by the end of the day. It's not a physically draining kind of tired. It's actually more of a mentally drained tired. So it's like your brain is tired. You get tired of making decisions. What is it called? Decision fatigue. You get tired of reading. You get tired of all of that stuff. Ooh, child, my shoe almost fell off. So y'all, that is it. Hope this wasn't tremendously boring for you guys. That is my day, and this is what I do pretty much every day as a lawyer in tech. And if you're interested in learning more, or you're interested in more videos like this, please let me know in the comments. What did you think about today? Could you do this job? All right, y'all, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Until the next video, be kind and be great, and I'll see you soon.